Now, the meaning of the word Kwanzaa is the first fruits of the harvest and derives from the Ki-Swahili language spoken by millions of Africans in Eastern Africa, and actually most of Africa, as many people learn. The significance of the festival is that although many of us are not necessarily farmers, we still need to take stock of what we have produced, achieved and accomplished so far, and set ourselves goals for overcoming challenges we're facing in the future. The practices central to the celebrations are in gathering, reverence, commemoration, recommitment and celebration. To talk a little bit more about this, Ashantewaa, Archer Ngidi is the founder of the Institute of Afrikology. She joins us now. A very good evening to you, Ashantewaa, and thank you so much for speaking to us. So let's first start with Kwanzaa. We talk about it quite often every year, but I don't think it's really quite sunk in as in just how much its influence has spread. How important is it? We speak about African American culture, but here in Africa.
Well, thank you again, and happy Kwanzaa to our Pan-African family, both here on the continent and those in the African diaspora. I get so amazed that 19 years ago when the late, great Ntate Kalushi Koka sat and represented Kwanzaa from what he saw in London, in exile, in America, and he said, this is what we needed, but we needed to go further than that. It wasn't just about celebrating our Pan-Africanness, but it really was about how do we come together to collectively celebrate each other. So what I've seen in the last 19 years, on the continent, now it's practiced in almost 40 countries on the continent, in different ways and in different names. So Kwanzaa becomes the root word, but there are many ways in which it is performed and practiced. And so we see in South Africa, what has happened is that there's more affirmation for more Pan-African activities, for more Pan-African festivities. But what I love about the idea of Kwanzaa is that it is a celebration of family, community, and culture. And so it carries us deeper into not just having a big festival, but you must first start with your family. And that is where, when people talk about the COVID and all of that, it has also allowed us to celebrate Kwanzaa with more meaning, with more understanding, with more coming together, with a focus that we need to stay alive, we need to unify, we need to be stronger together.
And Ashantewaa, I was just thinking about the principle of umoja. As you're talking about COVID-19, this is one of the principles of Kwanzaa. Tell us about them and also the symbols. When does Kwanzaa begin and end?
Oh, great. So since 1966, when the great Dr. Maulana Karenga, who was just here on our shores last year at UKZN, when he came back from Tanzania, he brought this to the African Americans in the world to say, there is something about Africa that has been celebrated in my travels. I've seen this. We also need to celebrate the first fruits. And so the 7 principles, the Nguzo Saba principles, Umoja, which talks about unity, Kujijakulia, which talks about self-determination, Ujima, which talks about collective work and responsibility. And today is Ujama, which asks us to look at our cooperative economics. Are we buying from each other? Are we supporting each other's business? Are we looking for African-based companies that are creating African solutions, not just for the country, but for the little child, for the older woman? So that's part of it. Tomorrow we're going to be hosting the Zoom on NIA. What is our collective purpose? Because Kwanzaa asks that we think of ourselves as a collective, not as individuals. And then we go from NIA, we go to Kumba, because we believe in these gifts that was given to us, the natural gifts of creating something with your hand. Whatever it is, teach a child how to use their hands. And of course, the last one, which is on the 7th day, which is the 1st of January, is Imani, where we come together and we affirm the respect of our elders. We respect their struggles. We respect what they have given to us. And we affirm that we will now take what they have given to us and we will, in faith of each other, of the continent that we belong to, of the greater continent, we belong to, we will affirm our faith in our people.
And let's talk about that, Imani, faith. It's a very difficult time, and Kwanzaa is basically about, as you mentioned, promoting self-determination, purpose and creativity, but it is a time for family and love. Very difficult for us under the circumstances. How do we encourage people to stay strong, stay united, and I like that principle of creativity because it calls for that under these circumstances.
Absolutely. So we say to people, all the practicing, we have over 18 million people who are practicing Kwanzaa around the world, and it's growing by the numbers. And we're saying, you know, there's your chance. Finally, albeit the circumstances, you are now given a chance to teach a child a song. You are now given a chance to teach a child how to cut a pattern. You are now given a chance to teach a child how to plant a seed. And Dr. Karanga says it the best. Our task at this point is to know our past and honor it, to engage our present and improve it, to imagine our good future and to forge towards it. And it is in those words that we say to people, don't get disheartened. It is a very difficult time, but African people, you are people of the text. You understand how to be resilient. You understand how to work together to defend. And these are key components as we sit in our homes, as we sit in the villages, as we sit in our flats, wherever we are. Remember, we are the resilient people. And Kwanzaa for Africa, in terms of South Africa, our theme is living. Our theme for Kwanzaa for South Africa is building a self-determining Africa. We want people to be self-determining and give their children those principles that will help them not to be running all over the place and getting, you know, all shaken up, but they will become stronger, focused, more inspired, because whatever we are doing today is to forge towards a good future. And that is what we're looking forward to.
And, you know, one of the symbols of Kwanzaa, the seventh principle, is zawadi, the gifts. So what can we then do for each other? There are people who have far less than others. There are people who actually have come up from a very high bar and are learning again. So what I'm saying is that so many lessons learned, but they're practical things that we can do for the next person that we probably think that we can't help, but we can. How do we take the little that we have and pass it on to the next? We actually need it more.
Absolutely. One of the things that we need to learn to ask each other, how can I support you? What do you need? How can I get it to you? Those are questions that need to be more frequent in our language with each other, because even those who are in their big mansions, they are also suffering sometimes. I mean, we've seen what this whole thing have done. So how do we ask the question, how can you help me? How do we reach out to people and say, how can I help you? And one of the key components is creativity. If it's to bake a cake, pack it and send it to the old woman. If it's to make some muffins and send it to a children's home. But the whole idea of gifting in Kwanzaa is that we always think of the first fruits. So if you think of the knowledge of first fruits, when you take something from the ground, it has its freshness, it's organic. So whatever you give it as if it's the first fruits you're giving. Because you don't just want to give anything. You want to give something that means something for the people. You know, when you give it to them, it's coming from a place of love, a place of knowing, a place of understanding. And we don't have time for ego. We don't have time for people going, Bugamina, I am giving. We don't have time for that, because our people need all the help they can get. But again, Sapisa, I say to you, Sister Queen, our people have been resilient and they know how to be resilient. And that is what we need to instill in our children. Don't just think about running to the corner shop only. Think about if you teach a child how to plant some tomatoes and let that child learn how to make a salad with her tomato or his tomatoes. You know, what you've done to that is connect the fact that food is creativity. Creativity is also independence.
All right. Thank you so much for speaking to us, Ashantewaa. Much appreciated. And if we can just quickly... put up those symbols again, the Nguzo Saba, just to remind our viewers. Ashantewaa Ngidi is the founder of the Institute of Afrikology, speaking to us about Kwanzaa. I was hoping that we'd put up those 7 principles again, but I suppose, okay, we will do that. So there you go, the Nguzo Saba, the 7 principles of Kwanzaa. And if you think about it, I think a lot of this is already in practice in so much of our homes. I'm thinking of my mother, my grandmother. Whenever I go there, they'll say to each one of us, grab an apple over there, or why don't you wrap half a loaf of bread? Just simple little things, nothing extravagant. And as Ashantewaa was saying, just little things. And we've got to learn to ask each other, what can I do to help? How do I get it to you? And how can, what can I teach you to help make your life better? So there's something that we can all pass on to each other. Thank you so much, Ashantewaa. And now let's recap on those news headlines.